Hey threadheads, Darren here. Welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying up a pattern that I've come up with called the foxtail leech. It's a pretty simple design, nothing too groundbreaking here, but just wanted to take you through my process. I use a bit of foxtail for the tail of the leech, or the rear section of the leech. I just like the way that this gives some movement in the water. And for the main body on this, I do a custom mix of dubbing. So I've got a little bit of black, some brown olive yarn in there, and I mix that in with a little bit of red and a black version of the Angelina fiber. If you don't have the Angelina fiber and you do have some ice dubbing, that'll work just perfect. Don't forget to leave a comment down below, and I'll get you entered into the next draw for some stickers and some of the flies that we tie on the channel. Let's have a look at the material list and get started. Alright, let's get a fresh hook in the vise. So today I'm going to be tying on a Mustad streamer hook, and this is model number 9672, and we're going to be tying on a size 4. Now we're going to weight this fly with a little bit of wire. I'm going to be using some non-lead in 0.035. And for the hook, if you don't have the 9672, any sort of 3 extra long, 4 extra long hook should work well. So we'll start by just wrapping on some of this wire. We want to make sure we get it centered somewhat in the middle. We want to have a little bit of room both at the eye and at the back end. So I think I use about 3.5 inches worth of wire here. You can use your scissors just to bush in those back ends, just so that you don't have anything sharp sticking out. If your scissors aren't working, you can use the back of your nail. That'll work as well. We just want to make sure that wherever we end up, we're not blocking the eye or the back end of the fly, so we can tie in our materials. We'll start our thread just on the front side, and we'll kind of ramp up into that weight a little bit. So for thread, I'm using a brown 70 denier UTC, but you can use any 8/0 or even a 6/0 if you want. As long as it's a dark color, you should be fine. So for the tail, I'm going to be using a bit of black foxtail, and you want to just grab a small clump. You don't want too much. You want this to be a somewhat skinny fly. You don't want too much bulk in the back. And what I like to do is just grab out the guard hairs and just realign those up with the bulk of the underfur, just so you get a nice kind of even tail and it doesn't get too sparse near the end. We'll tie that down, and I like to tie this along the whole length of the body, just to kind of bulk up the fly just a little bit. See, I used to tie this with marabou, but I like the fox. It's a little bit more durable in this situation, and it gives a little bit different action in the water. So we'll just bind down all those loose ends a little bit and make sure we clean up any of the tag ends of the material. So next we're going to tie in a rib for this fly, and this is just to give the material a little bit of an extra bit of durability. So we're going to be using Brassie sized red UTC. If you don't have the red, go ahead and use like a copper or a black would be fine here as well. We're just going to take a length of the wire and we'll tie it in along the close side. And we'll tie that down right into where we tied the tail. You want to push back a little tag just to make sure that it's secured. And then we'll rest our thread here. And we'll give ourselves a little bit extra length of thread. We're going to make a dubbing loop here. So I'm going to use a dubbing spinner tool. This is the Loon one. There's a whole multitude of different tools you can use. So we'll start by creating a large loop, and then we'll kind of tie back over it so that we close it. And you want to make sure you go around. Just advance our thread up to the eye, and you can see the open spot of the loop here. And we just want to make sure we keep that open so we can insert our dubbing. So for the dubbing, we're going to use some red, some black, and some of this olive brown yarn, and a little bit of red Angelina and some black forest Angelina. We'll get all that snipped up, cut up the yarn. You just want to cut it into about 1 inch lengths, and we'll get all the different yarns cut up, and we'll blend those together. Blend, a little bit more mixing. You want to just make sure that all those fibers are distributed evenly throughout the dubbing mixture that you've got. That looks pretty good. So now we'll take a little bit of that dubbing that we just created. We'll put the rest in a bag, save it for the next few flies. So we'll take a small clump of that, and we're going to just kind of open up that loop, and we're going to insert the dubbing into that. And before we insert it, we just want to make sure that most of those fibers are aligned. So we just kind of stack it and pull it apart just so most of the fibers get lined up, so that when we do our loop, we're not having a lot of the fibers come out. So open the loop up, and I like to just kind of push all the dubbing up to the top, and then I'll tease it down a little bit. And you want to try and maintain the orientation of that, so you don't want it falling off axis. And we try and push that up as far as we can. And before I spin, I just like to turn my hook to the side just so that we're not getting any interference from the hook point. If you want, you can tease this out a little bit, but we're going to do a good job brushing it, so we're just going to go ahead and start wrapping this. You just want to kind of pull back on the dubbing, kind of like if you're doing a folded hackle, so that all the dubbing kind of sweeps backwards. And we'll just keep doing that and stroking back all the fibers, and we'll just advance our dubbing loop. Every wrap, we'll kind of go forward a little bit. You don't want too much space in between. You want to kind of maintain a fullness here. And if it doesn't all get trapped, you can just pull out the extra. Now for this loop, I didn't quite make it large enough to cover the full hook shank. So in that case, near the front, we're just going to tie off the rest of our loop here. And want to make sure that you have that really secured. And then we'll finish off the rest of that just by adding a little dubbing noodle to that. Should be fine. You won't get quite the same coverage as you would with the dubbing loop. If you want to, you can go ahead and form another dubbing loop here as well, and that'll give you a fuller looking fly. So we'll just go ahead and kind of fill out the dubbing here. And you don't have to be too precise, too clean with this. You just want to make sure you got a clean eye. And we'll go ahead and we're just going to pull our wire through here. This just kind of gives it a bit of a counter wrap, so that'll kind of cross over the direction that you wrapped the dubbing loop, and that'll kind of help give it a little bit extra durability. We'll tie off the wire right at the eye. You want to make sure you give that a few solid turns of thread, And then we'll fold that back and give it a couple extra wraps. And then we're going to get rid of that extra wire, which pull it up, give it a couple wiggles, and it'll come right off. Then we're going to add a whip finish to the fly. And once we got a nice whip finish on there, we'll trim our extra thread and we'll cement the head. Give that a bit of time to dry, and then we'll come back and we're going to brush out the fly. Alright, so our head's dried. We're just going to take our dubbing teasing tool and we're going to just give this a vigorous combing. And you want to kind of go in different directions. You want to go backwards, you want to go forwards, you want to go sideways. Just kind of tease out some of that dubbing. And you can kind of see here the coloration that you get. You get a bit of mixture of that brown olive, some of the highlights from the Angelina dubbing, and you can see a little bit of the ribbing poking out underneath there. So once you get this fly wet, it's really gonna look like a leech, and this is kind of like candy for trout. So when they're gonna hit that hard, hope you enjoy it. Hey fly tyers, thanks for stopping by and checking out my fly tying videos. If you enjoyed the video and want to show your support, hit the thumbs up and share it to your social networks. I hope you consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, be sure to hit the bell icon to get notifications on my latest fly patterns, tips, and reviews. If you have a question or comment, leave a message below. You'll also be entered into the next draw for some of the flies I tie and a few stickers. Until next time, this is Darren saying, keep a hook in your vise. Cheers.